Have you ever noticed how often you are being rated? You book a hotel and they ask you to rate your stay. You order dinner and you rate the restaurant. You take a taxi and you rate the driver, and then the driver rates you. And the strangest part, a few decades ago, most of this didn't even existed. The idea that almost every interaction between strangers could be reduced to a number, that was revolutionary. But the main question is, how do you measure trust when nobody knows each other? And the answer to these questions didn't just change shopping, it changed travel, internet, and in a subtle way, it changed us. Today's story is about how ratings escaped the classroom, took over the digital world, and quietly became one of the most powerful forces shaping our decisions every single day. Hello everyone, welcome back to Tech Stories. Today with a story on the ratings. And I'm not talking just about the internet ratings, I'm talking about every kind of rating which we do and how this is shaping our world, our decision. And I think sometimes we need to be a little bit critical about the ratings also and how much these ratings, online ratings, are steering our everyday decisions.
Welcome back to Tech Stories, the podcast where we uncover the hidden stories behind the technology shaping our lives. I'm Didi. So Ferdy, today's topic is fascinating because every single person listening has experienced it. Whether it's choosing a hotel, ordering a meal, buying headphones, or even applying for a job, we've all been judged by numbers, or we've judged others with them.
So let's dive in. Because the history of ratings is much older than most people think. And there's not really only one inventor of it, but it evolved through several revolutions, each one solving a different problem.
That's actually more interesting than I expected. I was assuming we'd be looking for the inventor of ratings, the person who came up with stars or scores. But you're saying there isn't a single starting point. So instead of one invention, we're following an idea that's been evolving for centuries. That makes me wonder, what was humanity's very first rating system?
For almost all of human history, there were no stars, no scores, and no likes, because trust was something personal. If you wanted to know whether a blacksmith was good, you asked your neighbor. And reputation traveled by conversation. And of course, the limitation was obvious because reputation only worked in small communities. Once the trade exploded beyond the town, trust became difficult. And then, in the 1800s, the United States was expanding rapidly. People were selling goods to people hundreds of miles away. And of course, they never met. And the question became, can this person be trusted for me to pay for some goods to them? And then in 1841, Lewis Tappan founded what became one of the first commercial credit reporting agency. His company collected information about businesses across America and shared it with subscribers. And now, instead of asking your neighbor whether someone was trustworthy, you asked a database. And this was the start of a revolution.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm undetermined man. Before the stars, before the scores, before the numbers filled our stores, a stranger's name, a whispered word, a reputation passed and heard. A handshake carried all the weight. One broken promise sealed your fate. No screens to tell you who was true, just stories people swore they knew. But whispers fade and memories lie. The world grew bigger every day. Then someone wrote our trust in ink, a score before we...
Because later companies like Dunn and standardized these reports, and eventually bond rating agencies such as Moody's in 1999 began assigning letter grades like AAA, AAA to investments. And this was one of the first times complex trust was compressed into a single score.
41 arrived, trade was booming, cities thrived. Lewis Tappan asked one thing: can trust become a measurable thing? Merchants searched before...
And the funny thing is that around the same period, education also started to change. Because instead of subjective evaluation, schools increasingly adopted standardized grades. A, B, C, D, E, F in the United States, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in Germany, for example. And it sounds normal today, but represented a profound cultural shift because performance started to become quantifiable and people started to learn to compare themselves through these numbers. In the 1900s, the next leap came with consumer products. Organizations like Consumer Reports, founded in 1936, tested appliances, cars, and electronic devices. And instead of trusting advertisements, consumers trusted independent rating agencies. And again, a complicated reality became simple. It can be compared, and you can relate to this number, right? And our rating systems are becoming more and more engineered because in the 1990s, the web introduced a completely new challenge. People wanted to buy and sell to strangers. And how do you trust someone you never met? The answer was mutual ratings. And the era of mutual ratings started with eBay. Because in the beginning of 1996, buyers and sellers rated one another after a transaction. A seller with thousands of positive reviews became trustworthy even if they lived in another continent. This was one of the internet's greatest inventions. It enabled strangers to cooperate at a massive scale. Without reputation system, eBay likely couldn't have grown the way it did. And then the world simply started to rate everything. Google had solved the problem of rating internet websites. It's their PageRank algorithm, which is basically a hard piece of how the internet search works today, and it's all about certain ratings. The idea that computers could sort millions of choices and decide what should come first is the basic idea of the fact that today you can rank almost anything. Think about how often you make decisions every day. You decide which movie you should watch tonight, which restaurants you go, which hotel you should stay, which song should you play, which product should you buy. Every one of these questions, every one of these decisions has one thing in common. There are today simply too many options. And no human being has time to compare thousands of restaurants and millions of songs and billions of videos. So we outsource the decision to an algorithm. And it's there where things become strange. Because Amazon began to rank products, not just by price, not just by reviews, but also by popularity, by purchase history, and the behavior of millions of shoppers. Netflix faced a different problem because it has thousands of movies and only one evening. The time that people have available to watch a movie, of course, is limited. And which one should appear on their homepage? Spotify has the same question just with music, and Facebook asks it about friends and posts. What should you watch, listen, see next? Because these platforms aren't creating most of the content, we are, the people are. And the real innovation there wasn't deciding what deserves your attention. Attention was becoming the world's most valuable resource. We all know this. But ranking are now the key on how companies compete for it. But there's some strange thing here going on now. Because as more as you have these rankings, they are not only deciding, the rankings are not just responding to our choices. Actually, the ranking right now is shaping our choices. Imagine you have written an incredible article online. It ends up on a page on Google's search result, but nobody reads it. Now, imagine a very bad article that appears in the first results. Millions of people will click it. Not necessarily because it's better, but just because it's the first. And then success begins creating more success. Popularity becomes a signal of quality, and quality creates even more popularity. The ranking doesn't really reflect reality anymore, it starts creating it.
We built a mirror made of light to show us wrong, to show us right. Just little numbers on a screen. to help us choose what couldn't be seen. A hotel room, a book, a ride, a meal prepared with love and pride. We thought we'd only measure truth. We never asked what truth would do. 1 star, 5 stars, a million tiny choices, quietly becoming a million louder voices. The score became the story, the number wrote the name. We stopped seeing people, we only saw the grain. A world of endless judging, where every click decides. We thought we measured reality, but now the ratings write it.
So now, as the story here develops, soon every single industry has his own ranking. So you have restaurants, hotels, university, app, books, employees, streaming, social media, and the list goes on and on. We invented new numbers to measure almost every form of success. Numbers that didn't even exist a generation ago. Without realizing it, that we changed the way we ask questions. And right now, when we go on the internet, instead of asking, what do I think? We start asking, what do the rankings say? What do other people think? The highest rated restaurant, the highest ranked university, the most viewed video, the best selling book. The number becomes a shortcut to quality. It becomes a way to simplify an increasingly complex world. And to be fair, of course, very often it also works very well. Ranking can save us and reduce uncertainty. They help us to make decisions, of course, and that's why they are so powerful. But also you need to consider that every shortcut comes with a hidden cost. Because once ranking influences your choice, people begin changing their behavior to improve their rankings. Restaurants, they ask for 5-star reviews. Creators chase clicks instead of curiosity. Companies, they optimize for dashboards instead of customers. And employees, they start focusing on metrics instead of meaning. That's the moment really where this rating thing changes. And I think it's kind of damaging something on how we work, how we live. Because now the next step is not about rating websites or products or restaurants. The next step, which is coming, is rating us. So now I found some interesting research here on the internet. Listen to this. In an experiment, online posts were given an initial positive rating, and then this fact alone resulted in far more upvotes. This is social influence bias. Means that early ratings can skew the subsequent ones, especially in one-way systems. There's an old saying in economics. Tell me how you measure me, and I'll tell you how I'll behave. At first, rankings simply helped us to make decisions, but over time, they started changing the way we live. Because the moment people know they're being measured, they begin optimizing for measurement. Yeah, because imagine a student. What is the purpose of school? Is it to become curious, to learn how the world works, or to develop critical thinking? Or is the purpose of school to get an A? Those are not the same things. When grades become the goal, students naturally study for the exam instead of understanding the subject. The score slowly replaces the purpose. And in the same way, things happen in business. A company wants happy as a metric, customer satisfaction score, for example. At first, it works. Employees focus more on the customer experience. But after a while, something subtle changes. Instead of making customer happier, employees begin making the numbers happier. They ask customers to give them a perfect score. They avoid difficult cases. They choose the actions that improve the dashboard, even if they don't improve the customer experience. The metric was supposed to describe reality, and instead it became creating a new one. And social media really took it to another level. Because now we have the likes, followers, viewers, shares. And for the first time in history, millions of people could watch their popularity update in real time. Every notification became a tiny reward, and every viral post became a proof that the algorithm approved. Slowly, many creators stopped asking, "What do I want to say?" and started asking, "What does the algorithms want me to say?" The platform never had to tell them, but the numbers did. And I think it's interesting that even our jobs began to change with performance dashboards, KPIs, quarterly targets, productivity scores. None of these are bad by themselves. In fact, without measurements, running a large organization would be almost impossible. But something subtle happens when the metric becomes more important than the mission. Imagine you're a customer service representative and your performance is measured by one number: average call time. You quickly learn that shorter calls lead to better evaluations. So, what do? You end conversations as fast as possible. The dashboard celebrates your efficiency. The customer hang up feeling unheard. The company wanted better services. It measured speed, and it got exactly what it measured. This phenomenon appears so often that economists have even given it a name. It's Goodhart's law. It says when a measurement becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Think about that for a moment. The very act of measuring sometimes changes the thing you're trying to measure, and the scoreboard starts influencing the game. And what's more interesting is that you start seeing this everywhere right now. Because restaurants politely ask for 5-star reviews, rideshare drivers offering bottled water or candy hoping for a better rating, teachers teaching to standardize tests, researchers chasing for citation counts, news websites writing headlines that attract clicks rather than inform readers, and streaming service recommending what's likely to keep you watching, not necessarily what's best for you. Even athletes, employees, students, business, and governments begin to optimize for whatever can be counted. Because if a score determines your opportunities, the score becomes impossible to be ignored. And perhaps that is the greatest irony of all, because we invented the rankings to help us to understand the world. But instead, the world began adapting to the rankings. And once that happens, if our choices increasingly are shaped by algorithms and our behavior is increasingly shaped by scores, are we still living according to our own values? Or are we simply learning how to please the machine? Let's try a little experiment here. Imagine you're looking for a book online. There are 2 books. The first one has a rating 4.9 stars from 18,000 readers, and the second one has no rating at all. You don't know nothing about either one of them, but which book would you choose? Most of us would pick the first one just because thousands of strangers have already made a decision for it. Now, imagine that the second book was actually better. Would we ever find it out? And this is the hidden power of rating. They don't just help us to make decisions, they influence which opportunities are ever given a chance. The restaurant with more stars get more customers, the video with higher review get more people watching it, the best-selling author sells even more books. But the problem isn't that we created rankings. The problem is forgetting that they are only approximations. Because every ranking reflects a choice. Someone is deciding what counts and someone decides what doesn't. And if a company measured productivity but not creativity, employee will optimize for productivity. If a school measures test scores but not curiosity, students will optimize for test scores. It shouldn't surprise us that the numbers doesn't just measure behavior, they quietly shape it. We are really living in a world full of rankings. And if we all can ask ourselves how often we have judged ourselves by numbers: our salary, job title, grade, fitness score, bank account, age, performance review, it is easy to believe that the numbers define us, but they don't. They only describe a tiny slice of what we are. No algorithm can measure your integrity. No dashboard can capture your imagination. And no rating can fully describe your character. The irony is brutal, because we invented ranking to simplify an increasingly complex world. But remember that behind every ranking is a decision, a mathematical formula, A definition of what someone believes is important. And that formula is brilliant, but sometimes it's also biased. Sometimes it's simply incomplete. And the smartest thing we can do isn't to ignore rankings, it's to remember that they are tools, not the truth. Because the moment we mistake a score for reality, we stop seeing what's impossible to measure. And perhaps the most valuable thing in life have never been the easiest to count. And with this reflection, I leave you here. Thank you for listening, so take care, and I see you here in the next episode when we explore more fascinating stories on tech. Until then, take care and bye-bye.
Hotels filled with glowing praise, songs surviving streaming waves, drivers smiling through the pain, creators chasing one more gain. Every purchase, every meal, every stranger starts to feel like more than flesh, more than a face, just another average. What if a number is never enough? Can kindness be counted? Can courage be scored? Can wonder be ranked? Can love be reviewed? Or do we lose ourselves the moment we believe it can? 5 stars above us, 1 star below. Who decides what we should know? Every click, every choice adds another silent voice. The scale kept growing far beyond art, and measured our worth, then measured our hearts. We invented ratings to measure the world. Perhaps they've been measured.